But you see, they're sort of obsessed with the historical Jesus. Because they don't know what a person is. A person is essentially thought that may well be embodied as a recognizable, human being, for instance. But that's not what he is. So did Jesus come? Oh, yes, indeed. In the flesh? No, not as a historical person, no. But as a person, yes. And in history, yes, in the sense that, well, probably overall you can say that this person existed in very similar fashion to how we see him today by about, 300 AD. But it took time for these thoughts to come together that constitute a person. You see, we have childishly still identified persons with bodies. And if the body disintegrates, we say, well, the person's no longer existing. But if the body's there, and it's brain dead, and the bodily functions are not functioning, well, we say he's dead. And when we say he's dead, we mean his personhood's no longer here, doesn't exist. Well, unless, of course, you have some notion of the ongoing existence of the person. In which case you might relate to your, deceased partner for decades after his cremation, And in a sense, he's alive and real to the partner that's surviving and thinking of him and relating to his personhood. And in that sense, we find personhoods outlive in the minds of those that are thinking about them. It doesn't take a big stretch of the imagination to think of some super being, God if you like, or a whole retinue of super beings of heavenly host that don't let the thought of you ever pass. You continue living as a person forever. Oh, well, that's a bit way out and weird, isn't it? Yes, from the point of view of what we have taken to be simplistically the case of what constitutes a person. And yet we know he's not the body. The body can be there, but brain dead. I'm sorry, he's died, love. He's dead. Oh. And what do we do now? Well, we get rid of the body. Why is that? Well, this person has no longer use of it. And the body would just corrupt. Rot. Yes. Okay. Look, I don't want to raise the issue really, but it works two ways. You think of the devil, you create him. He's a being that has validity with those that wish to entertain such thoughts. That sounds like a bit of a menace. Yes. Such people don't make good company. Well, unless you want to go down that sort of street. When he says in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word, what we're talking about thought, purpose, values, creativity, the creation, and the created. And it's all a consequence in the story of thought. And the story itself, of course, is thought. Written down, passed on, communicated one to another. Why is it so important? Because it's so real. That's what reality is, thought. And the material reality that we take to be simplistically reality is transitory. It keeps changing, blends from one thing into another, and so on and so forth. Everything is transitory in the material world, in that its form and constituency and mix constantly comes into being, disappears again, blends with something else, becomes something else, and so forth. In a simplistic way, the atoms that make up your body at the minute have made up all sorts of things during the past few million years and come from all over the place. How amazing. It's not you at all, it's just what you is using. A body. So yes, Jesus is very real as a person of history. Whoa, yes, a great impact on history, yes. Did he actually historically walk around Galilee, golden-haired, blue-eyed, unusual Jew, doing miracles, walking on the water, turning water into wine, and giving great profundities that almost every one of them can be traced to earlier writings. He's a collage of ancient wisdom, a particular mix of it, a particular selection, not the Hebrew thundering war god. There's not much of that, but there is a bit. And I don't mean it's just in Paul's writing. It's in gospel writing. It's even in John's gospel. This world is an incredible mix. Purity is a sort of concept that we gain from experience in this world, but we don't actually find. In a sense, I suppose that's what Socrates' Pure Forms was about. Had this notion that there was some realm in which there were the pure forms. And this was not it. Now we see only darkly, but then we shall see as face to face in the light. Which you might think is Paul, but it's not Paul, of course, it's Socrates. Good few hundred years before Pauline-type literature came into being. It means, of course, that to believe in God is no more unreasonable than to believe in the existence of persons. Persons exist, but they're not the body. God exists, and as far as we know, doesn't particularly occupy a body. Although some religions hold firmly that avatars are exactly that, incarnations of God into bodily form. I think the sort of Hebraic view was that that's not likely, but you could be anointed with some spirit from God. And the kings were anointed, and Jesus was understood to be anointed, and it came with John the Baptist and so forth. And in fact, baptism goes back to ancient Egypt, doesn't it? You had to be a priest of the temple, you were baptized. Thank you, Heavenly Dad. Now look, if all this creation is just thought in God's mind, then of course too, we are simply thought. And our being continues as an individual for as long as we are the thought of such in God's mind. Hence eternal life is quite conceivable, where such thoughts are held by God, so to speak, to be worth keeping eternally. Or if you like, there's such thoughts as survive eternally because they have certain qualities of values and motivation that make them eternal. In other words, are kept in God's mind. So what we see as the unusual, the notion that we're really just spirit, thought. If there's thought, is there someone doing the thinking? We reckon so. Is absolutely reasonable. And to be a physical person is quite strange because that comes and goes. And in fact, physically, the body can be together but dead. There's no person there. Or at least he's no longer operating that body. How strange. And of course death is extremely strange. I mean, kids can't grapple. I mean, Granddad's died, he's laying there, but he's not actually there anymore, dear. How do you mean? I can see him. Oh, yes, but he won't move. Well, talk to Granddad, get him to move. No, he's not there to move, but he is. He's laying there. I can see him. No, love, he's died. He's actually not there anymore. Oh. Thank you, Heavenly Dad. Just after the first minute of hearing this recording yet again, in other words, the more we think about an entity, the more it is thought in God's mind, in the total of thought. Being is just thought. It can be in a very tangible way, in that it's very active in a particular mass of matter, molecules and so on, and we say, oh look, that's a human being, or that's a rat, or that's a mouse, but it's the thought that is the being, is the existence, is the life. So the more people imagine, Krishna or Jesus or angels, the more they become a thought entity which is to be reckoned with. So, you might be imagining, so to speak, thinking about demons, and you attract that whole set of thoughts now into your, this is an unfortunate negative one. Let's talk about angels instead, shall we? If you think of angels, then, Gabriel's come to give you direction and guidance. Then, the whole pantheon of thought relevant to that being that's been built up starts to be accessed by your mind, and you bring such thoughts into your thoughts. They now coalesce with you, and you have the Archangel Gabriel, so-called, visiting you. You experience more of this entity that's been thought about, and you access those thoughts, and he responds. Your experience of him responds accordingly. You see him, and he told me to do so and so, and of course the thought is that he speaks for God, and so it's a reliable message, and lo and behold, it was, the child was born, or so and so, auntie recovered, or whatever it was that you were thinking of in relation to this this being. Now, this being hasn't ever been translated into matter as such, only an appearance, perhaps, a vision, as we call it. It wasn't quite the same as matter. It was something that could be seen by the eyes and the brain, registered accordingly. But of course, your whole registry of it was in thought. It's all thought. So, we must be extremely well trained and reliable in what we think, that it be good if we are to be a permanent member of the host of heaven. The adult in heaven. We don't want all sorts of rubbish being created up there. Less than other perfect beings being thought of. There's a great purity in heaven. You have to be pure to be in there, and you have to stay pure to remain in there, sort of thing. Is this a great cost? Well, no, it's a tremendous reward, because, it's absolute essence of blessing and good thoughts. Look, I'm not sure how much from our point of view here, with our acute lack of knowledge and understanding, we can visualize heaven. But I think we can access it through purity of mind. And what our practices do, attempt to purify our mind. And we keep from evil. We don't dwell upon, we don't think of, we don't listen to, we don't hear evil. We don't contribute to it. We bring peace, forgiveness, hope, construction, creativity, love, kindness, joy, blessing, understanding, intuition, which is ideally the direct link with the perfect mind of God, that which is of all perfection and goodness. It's very simple. We've been doing it for thousands of years, attempting such. Some of us perhaps get better at that than others. Others seem to go down the complete reverse road, and oh my goodness. Well, we dismiss it in the end as mental illness and physical illness and death. They can't even stay in this world. And we don't know what sort of state they move towards. We worry that it might be bad. Yeah. Thank you, Heavenly Dad.